Good afternoon, everybody. Seeing people in the room from Spain, from Serbia, from Croatia, Greece. I myself am based in Amsterdam with a really nice international group today. So this is the eEnviPer webinar on managing spatial data in environmental planning. My name is Wiebke Herding. I'm the dissemination manager of eEnviPer, and yeah, we're really happy so many people signed up. We had a total of 25, I think. Might be a couple of people will still join us, or they will be referring to the recording afterwards. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This is an online meeting, meaning we can't. You can see me at the moment, but we can't see you, but you do have some options to contribute to the webinar. Well, we're running these webinars in the context of an EU project, which is developing an e-government solution for environmental permitting. And so we have a number of functions that this software has, which includes knowledge management, workflows, but we found that one of the features that is really important and that is also really impressive is if we actually put all the geographic data related to environmental permitting into one system. So today we're just going to focus on how that can look like and how that can make the environmental permits process more transparent and actually easier to administer. Yeah, so that's the overall framework. We have two presentations today. One is a general presentation about what to consider when dealing with geographic data and how to move from isolated systems to a more wider infrastructure. And then we are going to go into a demonstration of how this currently looks like on the eEnviPer system. With that, I think we might be ready to start. So I'll pass the baton to Diomedes, who's working with the technical partner for eEnviPer for the pilot in Italy, and he has written a white paper on how geographic information systems can actually help with workflows and environmental permitting, and he will just give us an overview on how these things actually work. Diomedes, I have just made you presenter.
Okay, thank you, Wiebke. So, as Wiebke was explaining, let's see now some principles of spatial data infrastructure. Those principles, those are the principles. The GIS component built in eEnviPer in the context of the eEnviPer project is based upon. So why this is an interesting subject? Because geographic information has become an integral part of the information environment for people working in local and subnational governments. Of course, geographic information, spatial data, is a quite complex subject and requires a certain level of technical expertise. So, at the beginning, WebGIS were developed in order to share these geographical data and make it available for decision makers. WebGIS is a web interface including a geographic viewer with capabilities to query and sometimes edit the geospatial data. That in the first situation, in the first system set up, these data were mainly stored in local disk or database. But there is a lot of technological development ongoing, and government policymakers have to be aware that they must adapt policies and institutional arrangements to accommodate and take advantage of these technological changes. So that's the main reason that led to that drove the evolution from the initial WebJS system to the present concept of spatial data infrastructure. One could wonder why there was need of this evolution, because WebJS already allowed searching, viewing, and editing data. But these data in general were did not overcome the boundaries of the local network of the local office. So what was missing was the interaction between computers and data without the need of human intervention to bring this data out. So what implies the interaction between computers and data? The reuse. Now it's possible to produce the data once and use it many times for different applications. This is the basic concept of the cooperative governance, so integration of among providers of distributed data. And as a consequence, we have a sharing of the cost for data creation and maintenance, and supporting the sustainable development from an economic, social, and environmental point of view. So the spatial data infrastructure increase the intrinsic value of the spatial data through sharing. Two information combined together generate a third one, even if the skills, the competencies needed to generate and maintain these spatial data can be still distributed in the network and in the different offices and administration. This is the definition we have for the spatial data infrastructure, taken from the Spatial Data Infrastructure Cookbook. It is a collection of technologies, policies, and the institutional arrangements that facilitate the availability and the access to spatial data. In this context, the original WebJS can be seen as a part of the whole spatial data infrastructure. How it's possible to achieve such a goal? Following the eEnviPer directive. This way, a common spatial data infrastructure can become interoperable and become a part of a global spatial data infrastructure node. This is the objective of the eEnviPer directive. eEnviPer means infrastructure for spatial information in Europe, and it's the set of rules and guidelines whose objective is to ensure that the spatial data infrastructures of the member states are compatible and usable in a community and the transboundary context. This applies at the first level to the member states, but of course it applies also to the public administrator sources who build the data knowledge of each member state according to a hierarchical structure. This directive requires that common implementing rules are adopted in a number of specific areas. In detail, they are related to metadata, data specifications, and network services, data and service sharing, and monitoring and reporting. So the first thing advice is to make spatial data searchable. And for this objective, some standards have to be considered about metadata management. The ISO 19119 standard is related to the services, and it deals with the identification and definition of the architectural models for building the interfaces for the services used for this geospatial information. Then, more specific to the metadata contents is the ISO 19115 standard, which defines the set of information for the description of the geographical information, and then the translation of this set of rules is the XML schema defined by the ISO 19139 standard. So the first step for the achievement of an interoperable spatial data infrastructure is the designing the archive so that it is possible to manage metadata according to this standard. Then the other key point is make data usable, and for this is required to follow the data specifications. Data specifications are collected by the INSPIRE directive in a set of annexes. Each of these annexes refers to a category of objects with geographical in the geographical context, and for instance, just to make a very simple example, the ledge how to present colors in a map of imperative. These has to be standardized in order to be usable by everyone. So this data specification deal with the thematization, values of the field field types, etc. So this second step for a interoperable system is the production of data according to these standards. Then the accessibility of these data in order to make them available for all the institutions and interested subjects. That's why the INSPIRE directive deals about deals with network services, and we have discovery services. The services is needed to search for spatial data based on the catalog service for the web. Mainly all the networks, the INSPIRE network services refer for the implementation to some standards defined by the Open Geospatial Consortium. So for the view services, the standard to be applied is the web map service. For download services, the web feature service or the web cover services, all these are always standards defined by the Open Geospatial Consortium. For coordinate transformation services, INSPIRE refers to the web coordinate transformation service, and for invoke services, this is not, in this case, there is not a 100% clear mapping with a defined Open Geospatial Consortium standard. But as a conclusion of this, to make your data accessible, you have to implement your web services in accordance with these standards. What else is needed to make this data really useful and accessible and used everywhere? Sensitize government officers about the importance of this concept about data and service sharing and about monitoring and reporting. So make them aware and sensitized about the importance of all these rules, agreements, and best practices to regulate this sharing of data. In practice, increase the global competence about these things. What is ongoing so far? A lot of member states, all the member states developed their own geoportal at national level, compliant with this rule, at least for this process is still ongoing according to a defined roadmap. If we take a look at this diagram, the national spatial data infrastructure, this is the sample of Germany, access the local spatial infrastructure developed by different regions, provinces, departments, and makes available all this data to a higher level towards the global infrastructure, available in Europe, the Inspire geoportal. Who can help us to set up this spatial data infrastructure compliant with these guidelines? There are several software products that can be used. Commercial products such as Apollo or Esri ArcGIS, or several also open source software such as GeoNetwork, GeoServer, Degree, but there are many others. So these are the basic concepts of spatial data infrastructure. I don't know if any one of you has any question regarding this subject.
I'm wondering whether you could give us an example, dear Mede, because at the beginning you were speaking about a spatial data infrastructure, making it possible for data to be available on a bigger scale without human intervention. Do you have an example of how this is already happening, so that we can imagine how that can look like once this is set up?
Okay, so let's imagine the environmental study related to the release of a permit. I am a province. I have my database. I led my studies about a particular environmental issue, an impact of a plant in my area. There is the decision to be taken regarding the permit in another area or related to the same area at an upper level, let's say at a national level. So if I make my maps compliant to this data specification, and if I set up my infrastructure in order that this data that I store locally can be accessed by an upper level infrastructure, even at the national level, the policy, the decision maker can access this information, join this information with their local information, and bring an additional value to the overall picture that they have to consider in order to take this decision. I don't know if this sample. So, in order to achieve this, at local level, what I have to do? produce my map and the attributes of my map in compliance with this data specification. So set up my web services in accordance to the network services standard. So even from another system, people accessing this information can be familiar with the information I'm providing, and can be able to manage this information, to interpret this information, to use and export this information.
Yeah. So suddenly you've got the leverage that it's not only in your little silo, but it can also then be compiled with other information that is also out there. And
yes.
Do you have an idea how much effort is that to switch from a format that would be used by local authorities at the moment to such an open standard? Is that very complicated?
There is an effort, of course. The initial effort is quite big because there are a lot of data in the local repositories. They are not in general compliance with this specification. So the initial effort is strong. But once these data are harmonized in accordance to these guidelines, we can keep the benefit will last forever. Of course, this does not apply to the newly generated data, because if one is aware about these directives, it can easily understand about the need to generate this data in accordance to these regulations, and allow this way the exchange, the sharing of this data.
Yeah.
It's a mutual benefit among institutions.
And I guess we also know that because this is, on the one hand, this big European process with the eEnviPer directive, and on the other hand, the Open Geospatial Consortium that is pushing that this is actually a standard and a direction that people can trust on, and not something that will be outdated and replaced with something completely different in 2 years' time. And with that, I am going down to Panayotis and making him the presenter to show us how geospatial data is dealt with in the eEnviPer platform at the moment.
Thank you, Vicky. Hi, everybody. I'm Panos Simeonidis from Draxis. In this project in eEnviPer, we were responsible for the development of the GIS application, and I intend to show you this application in the next few moments. First, I would like just to go quickly through a few slides in order to tell you a few things about how we developed the platform. So, the eEnviPer, can you hear me and see the presentation? Okay. So, the eEnviPer GIS dashboard was developed in order to be an application which will allow the users to visualize their data that are related with environmental permitting processes through an innovative and easy-to-use web interface. In doing that, the application was going to be, let's say, a valuable decision-making tool, since it will allow users to view, for example, the locations of the projects that are in the environmental permitting process, at the same time with other information like the Natura protected areas or water bodies or other information that are related to the environmental permitting procedure. So, about the system architecture. as I told you, the WebGIS application that we developed is accessible through a simple browser, of course through a web server. We use mostly Microsoft technology for this, since the web server is the Microsoft IIS7, and also the database, which is accessed through the ArcGIS server, which is our map server at this project, is Microsoft SQL Server 2008. So our GIS server, we decided to be the ArcGIS server. This is not an open source software, but we decided to go with ArcGIS server since it is also based on open standards. It is possible to use it and expose all our data using the OGC services that Diomidi mentioned earlier. And also, we found out at the initial stage of our project that most of our let's say, clients of the environmental authorities are already working with this server. And that's why we also decided to go with this instead of another GIS server. Of course, additionally, we add the functionality to the application to provide information, provide data, and display data using the Odyssey Web Map Service, and of course services and data from other GIS servers through the REST map services. The application layout is very simple. Actually, we have one big map in section 1. We have several menu and tools in section 2, and we have in section 3 the legend and also some space for some tools that need some space to run. The menu, which actually have all the system functionalities, are the map options menu, where the users are able to change the background map or see an overview map or full screen map, or change the order of the layers. We have the navigation menu with several tools to navigate around the map, zoom to full extent, go to specific coordinates, or to predefined zoom extent. We have the layers. Under the layers, we have all the business logic for each application for each country, because actually there the users are able to select from a single list all the layers that are available and are related to the environmental permitting procedure, and also to see the locations of the projects that are in the environmental permitting procedure. We have a search tool, which is actually an interaction with a map in order to get information about the features that are at the specific location. And we have several generic GIS tools, like a buffer tool, a selection tool with a simple buffer, tools to print or measure distance or areas, or even draw some red lines over the map. Having that in mind, I think that it's time to go and see the application live. So, I have to say at this point that we have a different set of data. We have set up the application for each one of the pilots that we have in eEnviPer. We actually have 5 different pilots for 5 different countries. So we have 5 different URLs in order to access the application. For example, this one is the pilot site for the Greek pilot. The users are able to go to the GIS application from the starting page of the pilot application, and in that way they can access the GIS application. The GIS application, as you can see, have all these menus with the several tools that I mentioned earlier. with the most important one, the layers menu, where under the available layers, a different set of data from different sources are available to the users in order to use them as overlays to the map interface. For example, we have the Natura areas here. You can select this layer in order to add it to the map. So you can see here for whole Greece area. Of course, we can zoom in to the Crete Island, which is our pilot area of Greece, and see those data there. Here you can see the legend, so you can understand what the different symbology means. And you can also change the transparency of each layer, which is very useful when you are working with more than one layer. For example, I can also add here the Seveso industry and also other layers of information. What is very important is that the users don't know the source of this information. Sometimes, since we are not responsible for the data, you might see that there is a little bit delay in the display of the map. But in this distributed architecture, this is something that we expect. But we believe that the overall experience of the user is very smoothly because we don't have big delays in the WebGIS application. Maybe this is because this is an application developed with the Microsoft Silverlight framework, which allows a lot of things to happen at the client browsers. For example, the client browser can create local cache of the images, so the overall experience is very good. So here you can see an example of adding different layers of information, and of course you are able to connect to other GIS servers over the internet, like another ArcGIS server or a WMS server. For this example, I can go and choose one WMS server, which is from an agency in Greece that are responsible for energy-related activities, mostly renewable energy activities. So here you can see, actually, this is a get capability request that we just made. The several layers that are available under this service, and for example, I can choose to display only activities that are related to photovoltaic projects.
I know.
So now, with this red symbol, you can see areas where photovoltaic projects are installed in the island of Crete. Another very important functionality is the ability to add data from the environmental permitting application. I have already shown you that in eEnviPer project there is a central website where different users are able to start a workflow related to environmental permitting activities. For example, a company can start the environmental permitting licensing procedure. in order to get the environmental permits for the environmental authority which is responsible for this task. During this process, several documents, pictures, and other data are imported to the eEnviPer platform. The users are able to see all this information through the GIS application. And this is very simple. They just have to click on a button, Add Project Layers. So you can see here at this point, different colors, and of course, you can see what the different color means. Actually, the different colors are related to the status of the projects in the environmental permitting process. So, for example, with red color, we have applications that have just been submitted to the system, while with green color, the applications are already completed, and between we have several other status. Since this is the actual data that we are responsible for, we have also here the ability to see each one of these projects in this custom list that we have. And of course, the users can interact using the map, so they can just go and click in one of those projects in order to get information from the map. Okay, so if I click also in one of those projects, I can see all the data that we have in the database, in the eEnviPer database, about those projects. Now, the most interesting thing is that if you have all this information available in your map, you can start working with this. For example, let's go here insert and use the info tool in a Natura area. So I can see information about this Natura area. I can search in any one of the available layers that I have on the map, and of course I can search by the attributes that we have in the database. Like, for example, I can search for an application of a specific company, or with the owner name, or with the registry number of the application. In that way, actually, I'm creating an SQL query in order to filter the related record. Or I can even make a spatial query. For example, I can select this tool and select those 3 projects here. I can see information about those projects in the table below, or I can even go and create a buffer around those layers and see if other projects are inside this buffer. So these are the results. So actually there are 3 projects that are, let's say, close to the project that I'm interested. Another interesting thing is that, for example, again using those 2 projects as target features, I can go and create again one buffer, but the thing that I would like to see now is if those projects are close to a protected area, a Natura area. So again, it's very simple to create this buffer and get the results here. So there are actually 2 Natura areas very close to the projects that I'm interested. And as you can see, all these functionalities are very easy for the users. I have to remind you that this application will intend to be available to all users. So it's going to be available for users like studiers that are working on the environmental permitting processes, but also to the public. So different tools are available for each one of these groups of users. For example, this buffer tool is a very useful tool for a studier, while other users will just navigate to the map and see the different layers of information, or use the measure tool to measure one distance from a specific project to their hometown, or something like that. But anyway, we believe that the design of the application allow any users, experienced or not experienced users, to get the most from the GIS application. I don't want to go in more details about the application, since all the other tools, it's, let's say, a general purpose GIS tools that you are going to see in most of the GIS application, and also in some WebGIS applications. So I would prefer to answer to any questions if you have any questions at that point.
Yes, excellent. So now that you've seen how eEnviPer integrates environmental permitting and GIS, what do you think about it? Where do you see its potential? I have one question for you, Panos, which is, you were showing the Natura 2000 layer and the Seveso layer. Where does one get this information from? Is that freely available? Is there a directory where you can find kind of information like that, or how do I find such information?
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, we have all the available information, for example, for Greece, that we managed to found from different sources, are available in a simple drop-down list, in order to be easy for the users to access these layers without knowing the format, or if it's a WMS or WFS or KML or any other kind of formats that can use. For example, the Natura layer that you asked is one of the layers that are available from the Greek Ministry of Environment to be used freely under the Greek SDI.
Oh yeah, so basically what eEnviPer has already done is we've looked at what would be useful layers to integrate with this and make them available for the users in the public authorities and the investors and environmental consultants.
Exactly. So actually, what we have done is to try to search the local or the national SDI for information that are already available and useful for the environmental permitting procedure. And because it's not always easy to not to have the actual user who is going to say which layers are useful for the environmental permitting procedure, we have also added the ability to dynamically add layers from online GIS service.
Yeah.
So in that way, we believe that if something is available, the user will be able to use it in the GIS application.
Yeah, and either import them from a URL or file, or just use something that's already embedded. I think I'd like to call on someone who's actually working with one of the eEnviPer pilots at the moment, maybe in Croatia or in Serbia. And I think I'd be particularly interested in what are the reactions of the public authorities that you hear when you present this system to them. What do they think? Where do they see the potential? And I don't know, Dragutin, Ivan, maybe Zdravko, would be great to hear your perspective from implementing the pilot. And please just unmute yourself and jump in.
Okay, hello Wipke, hello to everybody. I would just stress again that environmental information are very spatial in its nature, so it is very important to have such a system integrated in eEnviPer, obviously. There is basically two principal aspects of such a system. First, it's the functionalities it offers to the users, and the other is actually data and information that it offers to the users. So we saw just from Payanalti's presentation the functionalities of the system. However, it's upon us to add the data information that will be used, obviously. Yeah, and also it is very important to deal with the quality of information, which is generally described in metadata. So the management of metadata is also very important when we create such kind of information system. Since we are still struggling with the installation of the databases in our pilot GIS, but hopefully it will be solved very soon. We haven't yet tested and haven't yet presented the system to the local authorities. I mean, in a detailed way. So I cannot speak a lot about the feedback we eventually got from them or from other users, like environmental experts that will be engaged in environmental assessment studies. So.
Thank you. Zdravko, anything to add from Croatia?
Well, I'm very happy being together with all of you. Thank you. Thank you for very nice presentations. 2 weeks ago, we had with our local partners a seminar or something like we tried to introduce them to how to use our platform. And we faced with some problems with bugs and everything, which I hope is solved now. And for the next week, we'll try to repeat with a large number of local authorities numbers to repeat the workshop and try to enter to the eEnviPer platform and to see how does it work, and hopefully, and I'm very sure, it will be and demonstrate how it's very useful for the people who are on an everyday basis faced with the problem with the environmental permission in Croatia, and especially in county Krapinsko-Zagorska, which we are partnering with. So let's hope within next week or maybe two, we'll be more proud to say everybody that we success with our platform and testing it as we supposed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So what you can hear at the moment is what we're doing is we're running pilot tests of the software in 5 different locations. So we've heard about Italy and Greece and Serbia and Croatia, and there's also a pilot test in Turkey. And that will basically run throughout this year. The emphasis is really to make sure that the eEnviPer software is well integrated with the processes of the local and regional authorities that are managing the environmental permit process. Because if you've ever worked with GIS systems, what eEnviPer is doing is not revolutionary. It's good standard of it's a good practice of geographic information systems these days, and also other parts of our software aren't that revolutionary from the technological point of view, but the integration with the local authorities and the environmental permits, that's what we're focusing on now. And then as of next year, we will also be aiming to expand to other countries, other local authorities in Europe. If you want to hear more about eEnviPer, please do sign up for our newsletter, which you can find on our internet address, eEnviPer.eu. There you'll also find an email address if you have any questions or want to get in touch with us now after this webinar. We'll run a few more webinars. I think the next one is scheduled for September. And so if you sign up for the newsletter, I'll make sure that you get an invitation to that.